So I had a comment when I posted a video the other day about white feminist spiritual women, and I was wearing a First Nations, always was, always will be, Indigenous shirt. It took me a couple of days to kind of get my head around it, because I live in an area where Indigenous culture is normalised and celebrated, and an integrated part in all the spaces and places around the community. There's a lot of misappropriation of culture in colonialism. There's a lot of people adopting and adapting and borrowing Indigenous symbology, Indigenous art, Indigenous customs and Indigenous ways, and appropriating them for services and products for their own business, and they don't have any ties to the actual, they're not Indigenous themselves, and they sometimes take it and kind of do a twist and kind of sell it as as their own work, but it's definitely got an Indigenous flavour, and this is misappropriation of Indigenous culture, and using Indigenous traditions and art and customs in order to profit from. And this often happens, this misappropriation of culture often happens in this spiritual movement, the white spiritual feminists, misappropriating Indigenous customs and culture into spiritual practice, and then selling it or offering it as a service, paid for service, to people in order to have, some kind of spiritual experience. The shirt was actually purchased from a local art gallery here in the Northern Rivers, who sells Indigenous art from artisans across the Bundjalung Nation, the region, the Bundjalung lands in which I live in and reside in. When we're actually buying Indigenous art and craft and Indigenous services, we're decolonising our money, we're decolonising our narrative and our bodies, and we're actually putting money into the hands of our Indigenous population, so they can actually reinvest back into their community and to their culture. And it's really about being mindful about where you're actually spending and putting your money, and what you're actually spending your money on. But what I want to highlight is how colonised the comment is, how white the comment is, how really patronising and violent the comment is. And when we're talking about colonialism, what the root of colonialism is white supremacy, is racism. So to the person who commented, I don't know what your name is, and to anybody else who thought the same, I'm just going to say, just check your own, where your own narrative is coming from. If you're calling out people who are non-Indigenous for wearing Indigenous shirts or Indigenous products in solidarity for their Indigenous peoples, then you're just a fucking racist.